Well, I mean, speaking of time, then how does the way we spend our time really impact our overall happiness? I mean,
I mean,
especially though with
everything.
couples juggling dual careers.
Yeah. With the couples juggling dual careers, this is such an important audience to talk to, not only because I feel like I'm talking to myself, but because the research shows that when we looked at who is it that's most susceptible to feelings of time poverty, we actually, this is since writing the book, we conducted a survey among a nationally representative sample of Americans to see who is most prone to feeling time poor. And what we found is that actually women tend to feel more time poor than men, and which is interesting. And actually, that effect is even sort of bigger among men and women who are not working, which suggests that women have sources of time pressure that fall outside of work, whereas men tend to, their sort of sense of time pressure comes from work. People with young kids, and interestingly, it's like there's this stepwise where if you have kids under the age of 4, most time poor. Then you have kids that are still in the home, you still feel time poor. What's really interesting is empty nesters actually feel they almost fall into like a too much time bucket. They feel like they have more time than even people who never had kids or don't have kids at all, which shows that, you know, when I talk about time poverty, that feeling of having too much to do, it's absolutely subjective and perceptual. And so when you sort of, we've invested, you know, all so much time and care and thought into our kids, and then they leave the house, and then it's like, oh, now what? Work, of course, is a great source. People who work full time, particularly if you have a partner who works as well. So all of this is pointing to the fact that um, parents who work full time with a partner who's working full time, especially if you have young kids, that is the most sort of group that is most extremely susceptible to feeling time poor. And this is
Which
an
makes
issue.
sense.
Yeah, it is. It does make sense. It was very validating. It was like,
I'm sure, yeah.
it's like no wonder I feel so crazy, because especially in that story that I share in opening the book of having a little one under the age of 4. Now my kids are 9 and 12, which is such a different space than what I call the dark years, when we're like babies and toddlers.
The dark
Um,
ages.
yeah, which I sort of barely remember. I know that I survived them. Um, but all to say that this is a group, your listeners, who are particularly susceptible to it. And it's an issue because it makes us, when we feel time poor, it has these negative consequences. It makes us less healthy, Brian, as you said. Like, exercise is one of those things. Exercise is something that we are very quick to neglect when we don't feel like we have enough time. But the effects of exercise on not only our physical well-being, but our emotional well-being are really dramatic. And not only does it affect how we feel while we're exercising, like it gives us, you know, that sort of sense of like self-esteem,
Yeah.
and those endorphins are going. And if you're exercising outside, then you also have the benefit of being outside. Or if you're exercising with others, you have that social benefit. But not only does it affect how you feel in the moment, but it also has these carryover effects influencing your mood and your subsequent activities. So all to say, um, yeah, how we spend our time is really critical. But, and I should wait to hear what your questions are, but I'm like, but I will also say that while that sense of not having enough time can be very detrimental, increased feelings of stress, lower sense of happiness and joy, it's not it's not so dire, because there are ways in it. Actually, saying what I said before, it's about quality of time that we spend, not the quantity. there are ways, even for those of us who are working full time, have a partner working full time with young kids, where we can absolutely become really intentional with how we spend our time and sort of pull out those pockets of joy in our weeks, and those little pockets of joy and sense of, when I was saying your 90-minute, like if you get a really major 90 minutes in of getting, like, you can, the rest of the day, it's like, fine, like, sure, I'll respond to emails, sure, I'll, do groceries, whatever, but I accomplished something, and that sense of satisfaction, even though our schedules are full, we feel fulfilled.
But I think my pressure, my own pressure after reading your book is not just applying that to my work life, but also to my personal life. So, I love pickleball. I play 6 to 10 hours a week. That's I kind of lump that into a social activity. I mean, that's not really exercise. It's a little bit of exercise, but kind of like you're saying, hey, if you sit down, you block out 90 minutes, you're not distracted, you're just laser focused, cranking through it. I apply the same logic to working out. And if for now I'm in my mid 40s, so that 90 minutes is 60, but for like 60 minutes, if I can really crank a workout, then it's like playing 5 hours of pickleball. Right.
Mhm.
And I that's like one of the things I have to figure out is like, how can I do my time blocking? Right. It's not figured out. It's the motivation. My time blocking for work, my time blocking for family, my time blocking for exercise, and making the most out of each day. And
Yeah.
I don't remember if it's from your book or if it's something that dawned on me while reading your book. But I remember somebody posing the question of who would you rather be? Warren Buffett, worth $100 billion or whatever he's worth now, knowing that Warren Buffett's, I think, 96, or would you rather be yourself right now? And I remember like asking that question also in class to my students years ago. And it dawned on them that maybe money is not what's most important. It's not our most valuable resource. It's time, right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And to that point of the time blocking of having it extend not just in your professional life, but also your personal life, absolutely. And that's actually what I think is perhaps the most powerful for us parents of, well, also sort of managing a career, of how do we really sort of dedicate and invest and truly show up for the times that we are with our kids or that we are with our
right.
partner. And you can make, even if it's like a half hour, if you are so there and present and joyful, that half hour can totally determine a relationship, you know? And so really being like intentional around blocking the time that we are with the people that we love so much so that they get the best of us. And so that, and it's okay then for the other times that you're not with them, that doesn't undermine your relationship or how good a parent you are, because you have fully shown up and blocked the time and phones away. That, like,
Mhm.
for me, the thing that I've actually, and I will actually, I'm saying for me, the thing I've noticed has
Yeah.
been very helpful for my husband, and for those of us around him, is like, not only the phone is away, but he sort of is like, okay, this is my time that I'm here, and not thinking about like, oh, getting back online and responding to an email of
Right.
like sort of moving through it so that they can get, he can get back to work. It's really like, oh no, this is time where I'm like mentally present and sort of joyful and not having that stress and weighing, because all of everyone feels it when he's thinking about work. And so it's like time blocking, but also sort of mental blocking and protection.
That is an
Yeah.
essential point to make with so many of us working from home or having a hybrid work environment where it's right
Yeah.
there. Whether maybe even it's not the office right around the other side of the living room, maybe it's the fact that our offices are oftentimes just in our phones,
Yeah.
emails, whatever.
So before you mentioned kind of these little pockets of joy. Can you expand a little bit upon that, and like what are the experiences or these pockets that really contribute most to our happiness?
Yeah. So one thing I do recommend people do, I was curious whether Brian, you would identify this as the exercise, because often people say that the time tracking
Mhm.
exercise is so helpful because what it is over the course of a week, writing down what you're doing sort of as you come out, like for each half hour, but as importantly, rating on a 10-point scale how you felt coming out of it. And it's almost like your own little data collection. And sometimes there are these surprises of like, oh my gosh, I had no idea, A, that I was spending that much time on X, but also that I felt such joy for these little sort of unexpected, often very mundane moments. And even if you don't track your time for the week, just reflecting back over the last couple of weeks and ask yourself, what were those moments where I felt the most joy? And notably, or notice that I'm not asking what are things that you enjoy doing, where people sort of pull from their beliefs. This is having you reflect back on your own experience. And then people often identify are there these like really simple moments of maybe for me, my coffee date with my daughter, or going for a walk around the block with your dog and partner, or like sort of tucking your little one into bed. It's like these very mundane things, or even like having breakfast. It's it's these little things that sort of show up, these simple joys and pleasures, but they only show up as joyful if we notice them. And so, I there's this our psychological tendency towards hedonic adaptation that we
Mhm.
get used to things over time. So when you do the same thing again and again, it stops having as intense of an emotional impact on you. Now, it's good that we're adaptive in the face of negative experiences because it makes us resilient, um, and get through sort of tough situations. But the fact that, you know, that walk around the block or tucking your little one into bed or, breakfast with, the sun coming through the window, they're so ordinary that it's very easy because of hedonic adaptation to not notice them. They've just become part of the fabric of our lives as opposed to these little sort of glittery bits of our lives. And so, to the extent that we continue to recognize them and have the impact that, or allow them to have the impact that they can potentially have, there's a few ways towards this. One is actually going back to the preciousness of time, is realizing how limited our time ultimately is. Because just because that activity is sort of part of your everyday now, it's not going to continue to happen every day, and certainly not like it does now, right? So tucking your little one into bed, that's actually a very limited sort of thing once your kids get to an
Mhm.
age where my son is like, I'll turn out the light, mom, don't worry about me. I'm like, wait, what about that moment, where, or my coffee dates with my daughter. Now her schedule is so busy, and she'd like rather hang out with her friends. I mean, not quite yet, but what was a weekly thing is now I have to negotiate it into our schedules. So all to say, recognizing the preciousness of it, also finding variation even in those times. There's interesting, as you have couples, there's interesting work that shows that couples who continue to do have novel experiences together, they report greater relationship satisfaction. So the reason is because it helps offset hedonic adaptation. That is, like, instead of, moving through your experience, next to your partner, then it's actually you're doing something new. So not only are you experiencing something new, but you sort of see your partner experiencing something new, and you have something new to, like, engage around. So um think about what novel experiences, you can do. And again, quality of time is not like versus quantity. It's not like now every night you and your partner have to go do something new. It's like, oh, maybe every other week you guys find something that's sort of fun to do together, a restaurant you haven't been to, or maybe a show where, like, I subjected when I was reading this particular research. I'm like, all right, Rob, we're going to go do like pottery painting. And he's like,
Yeah.
and it was so fun. So